Okay, so here's the 1300s, and the secret is that neither of these players are like 1300. Uh, well, I guess the Fang is supposed to be 1300. Let me look at his league. No, I guess the Fang is supposed to be 1300. He's just been on a losing streak. And then Voice of Akasha here, Amber Blaze. Let me just make sure that my okay. All right, so and then Voice of Akasha here is like, oh, whoops, hold on. Oh God, oops, cut that. Okay, so here we have the 1300s here. We have the Fang versus Voice of Akasha. The Fang is like currently upper 12s, but he's been around 1300 for a while. And then Voice of Akasha is like, in my mind, unquestionably the best player of all time, and it continues to like be the best player. So he is like a monster, and so I put this in the 1300s, but like really this is I like Voice of Akasha, I think, is not really as much into league grinding as some of the other players are. But then you see him like play against some of the players that like you've played against in league and just absolutely, embarrass them. Sorry. And like you realize, yeah, he's like one of the best, and then in my opinion, the best. So yeah, here we have Eagle Eagle on Page Avenue. So Page Avenue is interesting. It's like pretty exposed HQ with black boats to protect the HQ so that they don't get captured right away. The 2 base side covers the HQ. The airport is with the 1 base side. There's a comm tower on the map on each side, hidden by a pipe, which you can break from either side. Although typically I see people break it from the top because it's a lot easier to spare the base build on an artillery that goes back and blasts something away for a few turns. If you try to do that from your 1 base side, you're probably going to get into trouble because it's one less big unit out front here that's doing work for you. And again, 2 base versus 1 base. 2 base has the advantage. So as for the Eagle pick, I think it makes sense. Like you can see it stall right in the center here sometimes. Olaf doesn't seem particularly attractive to me, considering all the roads and shoals in the center. Max, I think, is a solid pick if it weren't for the fact that the black boats kind of need to be killed by artillery, which he really, doesn't know how to use. And then Sammy, I think, is also like a decent idea. But I mean, Eagle and Sammy are both fine picks in my book. So I don't think you're kind of forced into one versus the other. Eagle may be a little bit more reliable because Sammy is just kind of volatile. So yeah, let's get started with the match then. So here we have some normal looking, and I think that it's very normal looking moves for quite a while. I mean, I would say I'm probably around the same rating. I mean, like my rating is just about the same as the Fangs. We've played before, we've traded games. So I just want to say that like moves that look normal for the Fang are probably looking normal for me. And then Voice of Akasha, of course, makes like, excellent moves all the time. So it's hard to find moves of his that you take issue with. So the Fang here, I think the first major point of note is that this infantry here captures forward. It's a move that I like to make. You can chain it from here into this forest, and then you have an option between getting really frisky and going for this forward city, or being a little bit more reserved and capturing for this property or this property. Then this guy here, moving to this forest allows for 3 different routes. You can go here, down, or up left, and moving to the forest just delays that choice for another turn. So there's no, yeah, um, nothing much to say about that. Yeah, Voice of Akasha mirroring so far. As for why you go for this way first, I think most people like to just get the airport out of the way. And plus, it's like a fairly good chain. You chain this into the airport, and then you go down this way into this forest, and you get to choose between this city, which may or may not be captured already, or go down into this city. So it's like a 3-property chain with an airport in it. That's a pretty good. It's a pretty good scenario. Oh, and one other thing too, like, if you guys are curious about like sort of how I compute like what the best way to open a capture phase is, what's the best thing to do economically, I wrote a short, like, um, I hesitate to call it a paper, but like a short explanation. It's on the Advanced Wars by Web Discord. It's like in the strategy section. It's pinned up there. It's like called Capture Phase Calculus or something. I don't know. I was feeling myself when I named it. So, uh, but yeah, I if you want the details of like how we figure that stuff out, go check that out. Okay, so Voice of Akasha has just enough money for a tank, tank on the 2 base side, as opposed to the 1 base side. So it could be that he just wants to like exert as much pressure as he naturally gets from his 2 base side and see how Fang reacts. Or it could simply just be something like there's like a lot more properties that need to be captured up here, and this infantry is responsible probably for this capture, I would guess. Um, or maybe this one. So maybe building this extra infantry is like slightly more economical than building it down here where you don't need that infantry for capture. Okay, so actually Fang doing something crazy here. Instead of finishing this capture, he decides to move north, which is pretty unorthodox. It's still going to be a while before Voice of Akasha's forces sort of influence this area. So I think it's okay to like finish capture here. The only thing that comes to mind is if he's trying to race for this property here. But then he's going to need a tank this turn in order to defend that. So we'll see what Fang does. Okay, and there's the tank. So I think he's got to be thinking about capturing this city here. That's my thoughts anyways. Okay, pretty looking captures from both players otherwise. So Voice of Akasha opting to go triple infantry instead of building a recon somewhere. Yeah, I mean, recon's pretty situational, but no, he decides to go for a triple infantry instead. By going triple infantry, it gives him 12k for next turn, which is the perfect number for B-Copter in full build. And as we'll see, he actually makes really great use of this first B-Copter. Okay, so there's some moves from Fang. Again, kind of skipping over this property in order to like race for the center. I think Fang knows who Voice of Akasha is. If he doesn't, then maybe he clicked on his. If he didn't, then maybe he clicked on his league profile and saw that he has 3 different on-site tournament wins, and then maybe he kind of remembered. But yeah, this could be like a particular strat in order to deal with fighting somebody who is like, truly like masterful at the game. Like sometimes if you feel like you're outclassed, you go for like kind of strange things. So sometimes that's what sometimes that can happen. Maybe that's what's happening here. Okay, so FANG goes for a 7-7 split on this tank. Okay, and actually, let me just close that that line of thought. So this infantry, instead of capturing here on this city, decides to go up north. It looks like because let me just show you why. He goes here. You can do something like that. And even when the tank is here, I guess you get the first strike on the tank. Yeah, you get the first strike on the tank for the cost of your infantry dying. Maybe there's like a different way. Hold on, let me control R. Maybe there's a way of doing it where you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now you're on planes and you don't get hit from the city. 1, 2. Yeah, this is the correct way to do it. So the tank goes here. This tank doesn't reach the city anymore. So now it's tank on tank shot. So, winning. But this tank in the meantime can like sit on this forest. So you do you can sit on the forest and then repair with the black boat or something like that. Yeah, you do something like this, and now it's like you haven't done kind of what you intended. So yeah, I guess anyways, he avoids conflicts and then kind of moves north. Okay, we were at the point where he did the 7-7 split. Oh yeah, this was actually the only part of the game that I saw Voice of Akasha that I kind of wondered about. So he decided to hit from the plains here. Unless, hold on. No, okay. So yeah, Voice of Akasha decides to hit the tank from the plains here. It's a nice 5-3 split. I guess FANG can try to wrestle back the engagement by involving both infantry and chip damage onto this 5 HP tank, and then hitting with the 3 HP tank. But I was wondering why Voice of Akasha didn't move the tank and hit from the south and then repair with the black boat. That would have probably been, I guess. I mean, I'm not looking at the calculations, but if it ends up being like a 4-3 split instead of a 5-3 split, and if he's healing back up to 5, then it's like, well, why don't you just hit from the plains? So maybe the plains happens to move it to like scooch it high enough with just enough defense that you end up with a 5-3 split. Because if you end up with a 5-3 split from the roads, you're in great shape. You get to black boat heal to a 6-3 split, and then the engagement is like totally over. Okay, but this is what Voice of Akasha decided to do. And okay, and I kind of remembered what happened and kind of told it. So yeah, indeed, FANG goes infantry hit, and then brings the tank down to a lower HP, and then hits with the 3 HP tank. So that's down to 1 HP. But it comes at the cost of like these 2 infantry being at lower HPs, and also not for have not interrupting for have not interrupted this capture or this capture. So yeah, Akasha's B-copter just screaming into the center of the map and doing damage where it's uncontested is pretty funny. Um, so as for this hit, Voice of Akasha counter hits with this infantry here doing a fair amount of damage. Actually, a lot of damage, doing 6 damage. That's like to be expected with a luck roll. And then, healing in the face of this infantry. One interesting thing, I think Voice of Akasha is typically uh, like really not too much of a proponent of healing his units. I think he does it less than most people do. As for why he does it here, I don't know. It's a great question. I'm not exactly sure why this situation is different. In fact, actually, I would imagine more than usual he would choose not to heal, because with no heal he goes up to 21,000 money, which on 3 bases is enough for 3 tanks. And that's kind of like one of the gold standard like nice numbers to hit. So but no, instead he decides to go for the heal, and maybe he has some other build in mind that he's thinking about other than 3 tanks. Well, I guess he must, because I know he thinks out his builds ahead of time. Okay, so a nice waiting move here with this B-copter. Just trying to find something to do, and the thought is like, okay, might as well chip down this black boat if I'm not doing anything with this copter anyways. And if I'm FANG and I see this, I see the B-copter chipping the black boat, and I see an artillery build. Everything about this just screams to me like, oh my god, he's going for an HQ capture. So sort of sitting back and like thinking about ways to mitigate that are like the first thing on my mind. I mean, and also I've seen HQ capture on this map a fair amount, so it's not like I've seen the ending and I know exactly what's going to happen. But I also have. Okay, so Voice of Akasha doing some pretty cool stuff with forward walling with his infantry. This is an art form that is like practiced. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it takes a fair amount of effort to like wall precisely and accurately. It takes a while to like learn how to do that well. And he's definitely very good at that. So I think the main points of walling that he does excellent here that I just want to point out. Notice that the end points of his walls are on high terrain. So here we have an infantry on a city. It's not going to get hit anyways, but it just works in my example. So just, okay. This infantry is on a forest, high terrain. So if people wanted to hit KO it, it's going to be a little harder to kill. This wall, this is just kind of hidden. This city here is going to have to be KO'd if FANG wants to hit these 2 units. And then in this area here, again, endpoint is there's a mountain blocking the 2-hit KO side, and then on this side there has to be a kill on a city infantry to start breaking the wall. And then we could look more at wall breaking things, but instead of like looking at different ways to break the wall and sort of check it that way, let's just see how FANG reacts. So FANG decides to go in and attack this infantry rather than go for the 2-hit KO shot on the infantry on the city. So Fang opts for a few different infantry hits, one here, and then the tank hitting the infantry. This one looks a little bit risky at first because there's this tank around, but if you count tanks, it's like 1.5 tanks for Voice of Akasha versus 2.5 tanks that are kind of in a region together. So, we'll see if this tank shot ends up working out for the Fang. Okay, so Voice of Akasha moving off, making this like sacrificial looking hit, but really it's a 3-hit KO, I think. Yeah, it's a 3-hit KO. Okay, to clear the city. Then the anti-air on the city. The nice thing about this anti-air move is there's no tanks anywhere nearby, and the only thing that can hit it is another anti-air. So from a city, it like does nothing. And when I say does nothing, like truly, like an 8 HP or a 7 HP anti-air still one-shots a full HP B-copter for the most part. So it's like doesn't really make sense to make this attack anti-air to anti-air. Okay, so then some more cleaning up here. Corner of the wall, or part of a wall on a forest. Tank goes in. And then B-copter, another shot on the black boat, and then this infantry here. I guess one of the nice things about how this wall is formed is like in this case, a lot of the endpoints are like this joint here and then this corner here, like this endpoint here. They're both made up by vehicles, which are a lot harder to kill. So this is looking more and more stable, which will give Voice of Akasha like a solid like wall for him to block for his HQ capture. Which, yeah, I mean, this looks like the plan, right? Okay. And then in the south, interestingly, doesn't go for the tank on tank hit, but instead goes for some infantry hits. And the way that I rationalized this is that Voice of Akasha had like a fast way of ending the game in mind. So instead of going for like these, I mean, there's not enough value on the board anyways for either player to get Lightning Strike, but just go for these lighter infantry shots rather than like kind of evenish trade engagements, because like you don't want to risk your HQ capture being ruined by a Lightning Strike. Okay, so some attacks here, suicide into this infantry for the one shot to go through. That's a really great wall breaking technique and something you have to really look out for. I think Fang actually kind of messed this one up. Oh, I'll see what this infantry does. But this guy could have gone here and hit this infantry. So now Voice of Akasha gets to have his turn. Looks like HQ cap is on the horizon. Blocks with the artillery. Love to see it. Kills the B-copter to like take all the fangs out of the attack. And then just like brings everything up north to like finish the wall. And next turn, resign. I mean, there's like, there's nothing to do. So, if you guys ever want to know how to beat a high 1200 rated player in 12 days, just watch this video more. Okay, Cool. Yeah, thanks for watching for this one. This is one of my favorites. I just love watching Voice of Akasha play. Um, and then the Fang too is like he's really unpredictable, does some weird stuff, like the capture skip here, the tank on tank shot. Some of the wall breaking ideas were pretty interesting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Tune in next time for the 1400s.